Welcome to the Illuminate Universe podcast, The Cast. Get it? The Cast? My name is Alina, and I'm the founder of Illuminate, where we mentor job seekers and help employers fast-track their business goals. I interview a celebrity cast of incredible individuals who have truly inspiring careers. We're talking about their work journey, the process of taking the leap to create a life and career they love, and what happens when they push aside their fears and doubts to unleash their fullest potential. Today, we speak with Vitalii Dodonov, who is a co-founder and head of engineering at Stan. Stan has raised over 8 million in Canadian dollars and is the only creator monetization tool built for creators by creators, empowering them to become entrepreneurs. Before Stan, Vitalii worked as a senior software engineer at eBay and a data scientist at Deloitte. Hello, Vitalii. Welcome to the show. Welcome onto the cast. It's such an honor to have you here. My first question for you is, tell us about your story about coming to Canada, being in Canada. Where are you originally from?
Hi, Alina. Right. I'm originally from Russia. I came to Canada 2014 to study chemical engineering. I have an interesting story of coming into Canada, and long story short, the idea came a year ago before I actually relocated, and I didn't speak English like at that time at all. One of the interesting things about me I've done in my childhood, I've been doing skydiving. That was my job, jumping with people and shooting videos of them as they free falling. One of my clients, my dad is also in skydiving, asked my dad when I was in grade 10, he's like, hey, where's Vitalii going to school? And my dad is like, well, one of the Russian universities was the plan at the time. He's like, well, why don't you send him to Canada? And my dad thought about it, and it was completely like outside of, realm of opportunities that we thought was possible. But then once someone asked the question, you're like, well, how far can you take it? And then we thought about it, and he said that we can make it happen. So it's 1 year remaining. I don't speak a word of English. This is like a completely new thing to me. So I got into this challenge of learning a foreign language and moving. So I came to Canada, 18 years old, finished the university, and now pursuing entrepreneurship.
And did you always know that you were going to be an entrepreneur one day?
I wouldn't say you always know that you would be an entrepreneur one day, but one of the things that set the course of my path towards this, I think I was 16 at the time, and I was on train reading a book. The book was called How to Become a Millionaire by 30 by Bodo Schäfer. I don't know whether he is a popular author or anything of the sort, but the book was interesting, and I read it. And one of the things that the author conveyed is, number one, becoming a millionaire is possible, and you just need to, understand the game and move towards it. Number one thing you need to do is to really get a firm grip on money. And number two is to do your best to do your own thing, because the money is in compounding and in, returns as opposed to in the monthly paycheck. So that kind of get me into thinking of entrepreneurship, and every single day, like since then, it's just the background theme that goes in your mind. It's like, okay, I'm doing this now, but what about my own thing? I'm doing this now, but what about my own thing? And then going into the university, I was like, chemical engineering, like whatever, this is like a good job. I'll get, some savings, and one day maybe I'll start something. And then you go through the university and kind of you keep asking yourself the question, like, but what about my own thing? And then you try different side projects, and I tried a bunch in the university. I tried a bunch while I was working back in Deloitte, while I was working back at eBay. And then eventually one of the side projects I was working on, I turned into a more kind of a formal startup journey where now I get to run a company with my co-founder and, building the future of creator economy.
That's phenomenal. And I feel like I have a question that I shouldn't be asking you, but did you work on Stan while you were at Deloitte? Was it in your heart back then?
I didn't work on Stan while I was at Deloitte, but I was working on a project that led to Stan. So there's an interesting transition that happened. But basically everything that I do now has nothing to do with my degree or with Deloitte for that matter. The reason I went into programming and engineering in general is, like, again, this theme of what about my own thing kind of leads you to try to think about what can you do by yourself that doesn't require people, that doesn't require like capital. As an immigrant to Canada, you owe a lot of money to someone who paid for your degree, and then you have a lot of responsibilities. So it's not like you can stop everything and go start a company. So in the realm of personal projects, programming was a thing to do. So I was always learning it on the side and trying to create something from nothing. I was working on my own project that was called Beanie at the time, that had a very similar premise where let's work out a way for someone to monetize something digital. I was pursuing membership. I built many things that Stan currently has, like one-on-one meetings, courses, what have you. So I worked out the entire technology landscape that powers Stan at this point, but I'm an engineer, not necessarily a salesperson or a marketer. So I was able to build a great thing, wasn't able to sell it. And this is where I met my co-founder, John, who kind of came with the vision and said, hey, there's all these people who need it. We don't have it yet. Can we do this together? And we kind of, yeah, 100%. And that was a time where I stopped doing what I was doing and focused on this full time.
I love that answer. I love it. I think my question to you was a bit of a tricky question because we also have to be careful about who's listening to this podcast too. Because to be honest,
Right.
a lot of founders who I've interviewed, a lot of them started the idea of their business while they're working for, Fortune 500. And sometimes I think being in an environment so stimulating, like Deloitte, it actually gives you a lot of great ideas and provides you the experience to actually move those ideas to the next stage into your own business. So this leads me to my second question. How did your post-secondary experience lead you to where you are today? Tell us about the creation of Stan.
I can't say that university was too much helpful, to be honest. I think it was a good, context for you to acquire knowledge, get credentials, and establish yourself like a safety net. One of the things that you learn in the university, for the most part, in my opinion, is like the work ethics and, in my case, scientific foundation that I don't use besides, the basic math at this point. But it's something that gets you to become, intellectually, let's call it sophisticated to a degree where it's like enough. But all the things that came to me that I consider valuable right now actually came from self-learning courses that I've kind of took because I was curious about from various sources online or just reading, Googling, YouTubing and whatnot. So everything I know, and one of the kind of things I lead with and that define me as a professional is engineering. I'm a very strong systematic thinker and I break down problems very efficiently. And I think like in systems as opposed to kind of one-off ideas. And that is something that I've learned from YouTube. That is something that I've learned from Google. That is something I've learned from Coursera courses, pretty much fully driven by natural curiosity. And it's like, I want to do this. How do I do this? You start Googling, you're like, okay, this is not enough. Maybe I should go take a course. And then you spend 20 hours working through an online course. Like, okay, well, now I'm better positioned to do it. And then you do it. And this is how you learn and you build on it.
That's so funny because sometimes I think the world of entrepreneurship, it doesn't necessarily require you to have a fancy degree. Sometimes I think Google can literally be your go-to for everything, right? There's like nowadays, there's nothing you can't find on Google. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I'm a big supporter of this. If I was to make like a radical statement that maybe I'll change my opinion as I grow older, but when I'm thinking, for example, my own kids, when they come, I'm really not sold on the idea of even sending them to the university, just because knowledge is so much like it's so easy to learn something these days. And I think when we were in 1900, when you need a library and you need a professor and you need a bunch of books and you need someone to like walk you by the hands through the knowledge, then this is helpful. And if your purpose is to get a job, university is also helpful because like credentials are worth a lot and that can get you into many conversations. But having gone through the journey where everything I'm doing now is literally the result of self-learning as opposed to credentials, I'm at a place where if I can save for years and instead focus on something that is actually building towards something I'm truly passionate about, pivoting as many times as it takes without, needing to change the program, get into more debt and all the overhead, I don't think it's a bad path to take. And in fact, I would rather consider it a more efficient path.
I honestly feel like I shouldn't be saying this on our podcast, but I didn't really learn anything when I was in university. Well, I'm sure I did at some point, but I don't actually remember anything. And I think my university degree was a vacation. It was a 4.5-year vacation with some travels to hackathons across North America, giving me a lot of time to be curious and self-learn and build Illuminate. So, but like you said, for a lot of careers, it also requires the credential, right? For example, if you're going to become a doctor or a lawyer, those things you definitely do need a credential, but the world of entrepreneurship is just a little bit different. And I think it's very cool. Yeah.
Just to clarify that point, is everything I'm saying applies into professions that like if your dream is to become a doctor, clearly you can't Google that. You better take a traditional path. But if it's something more abstract, then the question of whether you need education is much more important.
That's so funny. I love how we have to clarify. I'm sure our audience understands, it's all good. Okay, my third question for you. So the talent landscape is very interesting in Canada right now. What are some tips you have for founders to hire and retain the best talent? And what are the three most important traits that you look for when you hire?
Right. So what should founders do in the traits that I look for in hiring? It's very interesting. Being an entrepreneur hiring is by far the hardest things I've ever done. Some people would say, building a product, coming up with an idea, finding a co-founder, which is an extremely hard, and I've been very lucky in that way. But if there is one thing that makes or breaks a company, that would be the team and being able to, number one, identify people that should be part of it, and number two, convincing them to join is very, very difficult. There are a few things that I've seen don't work. Posting a job post on Indeed doesn't work. Posting a job on LinkedIn doesn't work either. Basically, what happens with all the inbound driven sources is a lot of average candidates who are either out of a job or desperate to find a job are applying, and you end up dealing with like very average or subpar talent. Basically, no one who is, I think the general philosophy that I see being true more and more doing this is that every people that are worth your attention and worth being part of the team are going to be busy with something, and it will take like you actually reaching out to them, convincing them, having someone introduce you to them. That's what it's going to take to find talent. So the advice there would be to look into your own network and look into people that are next to you and asking them to introduce you to people that they think highly of. Many people that work for well, not many people, but a notable portion of the people that work for my company, Stan, right now come from either my network or a secondary connection from a person that I trust. And I, at some point, reach out to them. It's like, hey, I'm hiring for this role. Is there someone in this field that you think highly of? And then being introduced, and then you start a conversation, and then either they would work out, or you can ask them the same question, and then you kind of follow this chain and find talent. Another one is to, again, all the great people that I know that I would love to work with really comes from meeting them in person or through an introduction from someone. So going to a real life events, for example, Toronto and Vancouver, they have an organization called Tecto is in Toronto that pretty much the hub for the technical community. So just hanging out in events, and the topic doesn't matter. I'm actually going to the one today. I don't even know what they're going to be talking about, but what I do know is that there is plenty of people that are in tech, and I may meet someone that I'd like to work with. So that's advice to founders. But as far as the qualities that I search for when I'm hiring, and it's kind of informed by a lot of literature on the subject, there are three traits that are important to screen when you're hiring someone. Number one is they have to be humble. You never want arrogant people like on your team. It comes down to like a human being understanding that they are part of something bigger, and it only works if everyone is in this together. So there's a humility component. There is a hunger. One of the reasons I don't hire from big tech is because people are not hungry enough to actually go after something. It's like once you are financially sustainable, and then there is nothing pressing you, and you don't want to achieve something because like you are good, that's just not a trait that as a founder of a company you want to be on your team. You want like the opposite of it. And the third component is smart, and smart not IQ smart, but more of an EQ smart, because you want to be working with people who you would kind of enjoy, hanging out on the couch and having beers together and like genuinely enjoying your time. And that comes with a certain level of like emotional maturity and them being with you on the same page. So when I'm doing interviews, those are the three qualities that I screen very hard for in the first 30 minutes.
The emotional intelligence piece and the humility piece, oh my goodness, those two pieces resonate with me so much. It's like at the end of the day, no matter how smart or capable this person is, if they can't interact with a human being in a very pleasant way, it just ruins the whole game, right? It ruins the whole employee employer experience. So I totally agree with you. Also, something that's interesting is when you said Indeed and LinkedIn doesn't work. For us, maybe because we're in a different field, Vitali, you're in more of a technical, like engineering, like code, real stuff, kind of field. Whereas our company is more communications, event planning, marketing. To be honest, for the roles that we hire, as long as you can use Canva or Wix or have some kind of logic, common sense, you can thrive in this role. So for us, LinkedIn actually, we haven't tried Indeed, but we our two hires right now, they're both from LinkedIn and they're phenomenal. Isn't that
I
interesting?
think, yeah. I think the context changes, and kind of for what I'm trying to do, we've tried and it didn't work as well. But it's totally possible that you're looking for a different profile, and maybe people that fit your profile are there, and it's a viable path for them.
Okay, well, interesting learning. Every time we talk, I learn about something new, which I love, absolutely love. Now, the last question I have for you, following up to the 3 traits you're looking for in the individuals that you hire, how would you recommend someone to develop these skills or traits?
Yeah, this is very interesting. I would rather put them in the realm of like traits of a human being that say if if what you're screening for like is a programming language or any other skill that is trainable, then I think there would be a solid answer and a recommendation. But when we are saying how can you develop humility, I'm at a place who's like I have no idea. The person is either humble or they aren't, and this is as far as it goes. Okay, so humility, emotional intelligence, I guess just in general comes from spending time with people and being, good partner in a conversation. And yeah, another thing that I don't think can be developed like that easily. It's you either are that or not, and developing it will just take probably years of dedicated effort. One of the interesting books that I would actually recommend on emotional intelligence specifically is called Nonviolent Communication. That kind of helps you get into the mind frame of like thinking with empathy in mind, and kind of try to connect emotionally to like talk in a way that doesn't hurt other people, which was helpful for me earlier in my career. I don't know whether it would make a non-high IQ person into a high IQ person, but I think it will certainly help. So sorry, Ellen, I think this is as much as I have on this. I don't know whether you can actually develop those besides just trying to be a generally great human being and helpful at work. I think if that is your objective from kind of early on, then over time you'll become that.
I think I threw some really hard questions at you in our podcast.
Yes.
One thing that came to mind while you were talking about humility and also EQ is the term servant leadership. Don't you think that when we place ourselves in the position to serve others, even when you're in a leadership position, you're thinking about, how can I serve my company? How can I serve my employees so they have a better experience? And from an employee's perspective, they could think, how could I serve my company's objectives? How can I serve the company's culture? What can I do to adapt and to contribute? I think once individuals are placed in that mentality, the world of EQ just suddenly opens.
Mm. I agree with the concept of serving. I've never thought about the concept of serving from, the EQ lens on this, but I can see how it's connected. And I think in the end of the day, all of us are serving something or someone. For example, like leadership team serves the customer, and then employees serve the companies, and then people inside the company serve their own team or internal functions. Like in the end of the day, the process of creation of value, which is pretty much the core of most of the things we do, isn't serving someone or something that you feel deeply passionate about. And if you stay true to this, it does lead to humility, empathy, EQ.
I love it. Stay true to yourself, stay true to your values, and think about how can I serve and contribute and give instead of thinking about how can I take, how can I get the most out of this? I think it's a win-win situation. That's always the best for both parties. And the last piece that I think is super important is being comfortable with change. I think, a lot of individuals are afraid of change. And when change is being thrown at them, it's so different from their own pace or from their normal life, it kind of throws them off. But I think change in a sense can also be perceived as adventure. Oh, hey, look, this new change more. And you can think about it as, oh, hey, look, this new adventure coming my way. I think that changes our mentality of things.
Yeah, I agree with that. As one of the people who is like naturally resistant to change because I like consistency and I like being systematic about it. Change is hard. It's one of the hardest things. But as long as you keep in mind and you keep your eyes on the ball from the standpoint, it's like this is what's really important. And sometimes you need to change yourself to get there. Once you realize that who you are or what you're doing no longer fits what's required to be there, you'll only be able to do that if you consider change in your realm of possibilities and you're open to actually going through the difficult process of adapting to it.
I love it. I love it. And thank you so much, Vitalii, for being on our show and sharing your wisdom today. Until next time.